Hi, this is Andrew Groh with the Missouri Society of CPAs. This is MOCPA Bar Talk, where we talk about the latest trends, news, and issues that matter to you the most. Let's get started. Hi, welcome. My name is Andrew Groh, here with the MOCPA. Welcome to Bar Talk. It's the first ever podcast. I'm here today with Dave Hartley, CPA with Anders CPAs Advisors. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
We're here to talk today a little bit about technology trends of the future, some disruptive technology issues, things that CPAs in Missouri and elsewhere really need to know and understand to be able to see the tech trends that are coming in the future.
Right.
Yep. Welcome, David. David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I work with Anders CPAs Advisors here in St. Louis. So St. Louis-based firm, 210, 220 employees, goes up during tax season. So I lead the advisory services practice. So we have a managed services subsidiary, we have a Microsoft practice, but we have a traditional core audit and tax practice as well. So part of that is also looking at how the firm utilizes technology, not just on the advisory side, but also as part of our core operations in audit and in tax. So I've been with the firm for just about a year now.
Perfect.
But my career, about 30 years. It's hard to believe I'm that old, but actually started past the CPA in the early 90s and have had a wealth of different experiences up to this point.
That's fantastic. And what I know you're on MOCPA's Transformation Task Force Committee, a very active member.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about your activities through that committee and some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast today that are coming out of your committee?
Sure. Yeah. So the Transformation Task Force is something that Tom Hilton, who's the MOCPA board chair this year, one of his initiatives is really to focus on that transformation that's happening. And it's not just happening to business, but it's also something that is going to dramatically affect CPAs. And so the Transformation Task Force is really focused on how can we create awareness, how can we create understanding, and start to create maturity around some of these different technologies that are going to impact the profession significantly.
But why now? What is it about right now, this period of time, where you think and the task force and quite frankly our profession is saying we all need to stand up and pay attention to these technologies come down the pipe right now?
Well, I think it's been probably a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. It won't be the first time you've ever heard them, because most of these technologies have been in development for years. I think what's happening now is we're getting to that tipping point of where the technologies are getting to a point where they're going to have the impact that 3 to 5 years ago we saw potential. Now in 2020 is when we're actually going to see the effects of these technologies. And I think that's part of what, in 2019 it was okay that we kind of talked about it, but didn't take it that seriously. Now, if we don't understand these technologies, figure out how to take advantage of them, I think there's a huge impact on competitive advantage for CPAs in terms of how they do business and how their clients do business. And a lot of those relate back to just the changes that are happening in the CPA profession as a whole.
That's fair. And so, if I don't know what blockchain is, haven't heard of robotic process automation.
Yep.
And I'm listening to this podcast and listening to you. Where are you seeing these technologies come through? What types of resources are we as a profession, are you seeing in the Transformation Task Force driving why these ones we're talking about today?
Yeah. So I think that, so today we're going to cover 4 specific technologies, and I think they're all very relevant and they can have a significant impact. In terms of, when I think about how these are going to be incorporated into the CPA world, I mean, there's a lot that's happening at the AICPA level with CPA.com. So I think there is a growing body of training materials that are available in these technologies. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us as practitioners, 2020 is the year to start taking this serious because it is going to start to have impacts. So where we're seeing it is, the AICPA has done a lot with their partner network in terms of finding technology solutions that really benefit CPAs. I had the opportunity to go to the AICPA's Digital CPA Conference in December, and it was impressive in terms of the technology vendors that were there, and as they talked about the things that they were doing with firms and some of the outcomes that they were seeing. Those are the types of things that we need to make sure that everybody is aware of the potential impact of these technologies, and that it's not just potential anymore, but it is actually some of these things are coming to fruition, and it really is just the beginning of a series of technology impact that's going to affect us for years to come.
Perfect. And so, just a brief introduction. What are those 4 technologies that our profession, the task force, and you really have kind of latched on to that we're going to be talking about today? And oh, by the way, in future podcast discussions, just at a deeper level.
Right. Yeah. So I think the 4 that we've picked out. And I think it's also important to understand that within all of this, there is a context of technology, automation, which of course means cybersecurity is extremely serious. So we're not going to specifically talk about that, but that's kind of the backdrop that all these technologies will operate in. So the 4 specifically that we've called out, the first is data analytics. So we'll talk about that. Next is RPA, robotic process automation. We'll talk about that. Third is AI, which is artificial intelligence. We'll talk a little bit. I prefer to use the term augmented intelligence. And then 4th is blockchain. There's been a lot of discussion about blockchain, but I still don't know that people understand why it's important. And so those 4 are the ones that we as a task force, which there's probably 30 of us on the task force, and when we get together and talk, it always comes back to these 4 that we're starting to see how these are having an impact both within our firms, but then also within our client base. And if we want our clients to succeed, these are the topics that we need to make sure that we're working with our clients on and prepared to answer their questions and help them succeed long term.
And do you think these 4 are far enough along that hype cycle? You mentioned it, just a few moments ago, where this is why these 4 have come up to the top, is that they're far enough along where they've passed kind of the sniff test, the initial stages in technology, and are being implemented and look like they've got staying power. Is that kind of where we are?
Yeah, I think so. And it goes back to that evolution that's happened where these tools have been in development. And really in 2019, we saw a number of step changes in terms of things we thought the tools can do that now they're actually starting to do them. And so I think that's part of the excitement level is around some of these things that before it was almost purely theoretical or it was happening in universities or those types of things. Now it's actually manifesting itself within our client base.
Perfect. So on Gartner's hype cycle, we're not talking about smart dust. We're not talking about deep AI, those types of things. But oh, by the way, this conversation is fantastic for 2020. There are, of course, more of those coming along the way, right?
Right. And a lot of what we're going to talk about are really foundational technologies. There's a lot of things that will be built on top of them, but to understand the construct of the 4 that we're talking about is really important, because when you look at each of these, where they're going to evolve and how they're going to advance is exciting. And I think that's another thing that we need to get to, which is, none of us are experts in these technologies. If you are, the next day you're not, because they grow and change. And so part of it, and part of what we want to do as a task force, is to help put this information in a package that any CPA in Missouri can listen to and understand what these technologies are. And really what we want to focus on in this is to understand the why. This is the potential of the impact that this technology is going to have, both on you as a CPA practitioner, but then also for your clients.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us for this edition of MOCPA Bar Talk. If you have any questions or would like to chat a little bit more about the issues that we discussed, just let me know. My contact information is below.